1. Introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable. Wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary. Episode 57 DEC February 15, 2025. Wisconsin research cuts threaten Germans critique Vance. In episode 57 DEC 1, Wisconsin Madison leaders at the University of Wisconsin Madison warn a proposed cut to federal funding could significantly affect the university research budget. 2. Canada, British Columbia, Williams Lake economy. I am very fearful power plant key to Williams Lake economy on the verge of shutdown. RAWSEP View. Just stop wood burning. No community should have to rely on burning wood for energy. We need to phase it out and replace it with clean combustion free energy. 3. Australia, Melbourne, a heated debate. Are Australian wood-fire heaters polluting Australian human rights obligations? For Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany on Saturday accused Vice President JD Vance of unacceptably interfering in the German imminent elections on behalf of a party that has played down the atrocities committed by the Nazis 80 years ago. Main contents. 1. Wisconsin Madison leaders at the University of Wisconsin Madison warn a proposed cut to federal funding could significantly affect the university research budget. The provost at the University of Wisconsin Madison urged faculty, staff, and students to be cautious and continue their work amid uncertainty in federal research funding. UW-Madison grad students are very afraid of federal funding turmoil. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Capital Times, February 11, 2025. Leaders at the University of Wisconsin Madison warn a proposed cut to federal funding could significantly affect the university research budget. Graduate students at the University of Wisconsin Madison are feeling scared, frustrated, and confused about the uncertainty of federal research funding. A federal judge last month blocked efforts by Trump to halt the flow of billions of federal dollars. Then on February 7, the National Institutes of Health announced a dramatic cut in funding for some research expenses at UW-Madison and other institutions. Wisconsin joined 21 other states in filing a lawsuit challenging the Trump research cuts. The reduction was set to go into effect February 10th, but a federal judge temporarily blocked that move as well to gut funding to help find cures and treatments for things like cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and diabetes is unconscionable, said Democratic Governor Tony Evers. UW Madison could lose roughly $65 million this year through the cuts. According to the lawsuit, National Institutes of Health funding is the largest source of federal support at UW-Madison. The university was awarded nearly $500 million through grants in recent years. The National Institutes of Health provides research funding that supports expenses such as staff salaries, graduate student stipends, and supplies. UW-Madison said the agency also funds indirect costs, including scientific equipment, laboratory construction, utilities, and other items. The negotiated rates at UW-Madison range from 26% to 55.5%. The university said Trump is seeking to reduce recovery rates to 15% for new and existing grants. That decrease would inevitably affect opportunities for students to work on research and delay the discovery of life-saving treatments and cures. All of us work together to make new discoveries. Hundreds of projects on campus are funded by the National Institutes of Health. The UW School of Medicine and Public Health recently received a historic $150 million award from NIH to research Alzheimer's disease. The former NIH director visited UW-Madison last summer to highlight the UW-Madison biomedical research, including screening work to develop targeted cancer treatments. UW-Madison spends an average of $188 million every week on federally funded research. At a meeting of faculty and assembly staff leaders Monday afternoon, they were asked if there are expenditures that you can hold off for a few weeks in any particular place. Please at least consider it. Broader effect across Wisconsin. In addition to UW-Madison, the National Institutes of Health cuts could affect other research institutions in Wisconsin, including the Medical College of Wisconsin. President and CEO echoed worries Monday about the immediate and long-term effects on biomedical research. Even brief disruptions can halt clinical trials, prevent patient recruitment, and delay the publication of critical findings affecting the number of patients who could benefit from new treatments. The college remains committed to this important work as school leaders seek clarity from the federal government, he said. The Wisconsin Technology Council urged Wisconsin members of Congress to restore NIH indirect cost rates and encourage the National Science Foundation and other agencies not to make similar changes. It is not just about Madison. Every campus in the universities of Wisconsin receives some federal research and development dollars, as do major private institutions, the council said in a statement. To Canada, British Columbia, Williams Lake economy. I am very fearful power plant key to Williams Lake economy on the verge of shutdown. RAWSEP View Just stop wood burning. No community should have to rely on burning wood for energy. We need to phase it out and replace it with clean combustion free energy. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. Global News, February 14, 2025. Williams Lake in danger of losing biomass plant. Williams Lake in danger of losing biomass plant. The city of Williams Lake is calling on the provincial government and BC Hydro to take action and prevent the closure of one of its most important businesses. The city of Williams Lake, BC is calling on the province to step in to prevent the closure of a power plant critical to local employment and the municipality. Bottom line, the Atlantic Power Facility generates enough electricity to power about 50,000 homes by burning wood waste. It is responsible for about 40 full-time jobs and pays about $17 million in direct taxes to the city every year. BC Hydro imports record amount of electricity. BC Hydro imports record amount of electricity. I might have to shut down half of City Hall. Williams Lake Mayor Surinder Rador said of the looming closure, this is the single biggest taxpayer to the community. The Atlantic Power Plant gave notice last February that it was going to pull out of the community, citing it inability to remain profitable under its current contract with BC Hydro. Williams Lake City Councilor Scott Nelson said that is because with the closure of local sawmills and upgrades to others to improve their efficiency, easy to access wood fiber has become more scarce. Instead, the company now sources inputs from the surrounding Chilcotin Plateau, collecting the waste wood left by wildfires and deadwood that could become fuel for future wildfires. He said as you go further out you reduce the fires, but it also costs more to bring this into Atlantic Power. He said Nelson said it makes no sense to shutter a plant that is producing local electricity when the province is already importing power from the U.S. thanks to recent droughts. And while the U.S. is threatening massive tariffs on Canada, Rador said the company is weeks away from issuing layoff notices to workers, something he said could devastate the community. The city is calling on Premier David Eby to step in and ensure BC Hydro negotiates a new contract, something Rador says the province promised. The Energy Ministry said it recognizes the importance of the plant, and the Premier had created a cross-government team to work with Atlantic on solutions. Those include providing the company with additional fuel supply options. It said BC Hydro had also amended its electricity purchase agreement with the company in October to give the working group more time to come up with long-term solutions to the affordable fiber supply problem. In the meantime, city officials remain on edge at the prospect of losing a key component of their local economy. Atlantic Power is getting close to saying that is it, we are gone. Nelson said, I am very fearful. Other stories. New study warns of more severe fire risk in Canada without preventive measures. Trump announces sweeping global reciprocal tariffs. Canadian man sells both Teslas. Cancels Cybertruck order to boycott Musk. 3. Australia, Melbourne, a heated debate. Are Australian wood-fire heaters polluting Australian human rights obligations? Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. Monash University, February 13, 2025. It is easy to romanticize the soft glow of wood-fire heaters with warm feelings, yet the associated smoke is of serious concern. Alarmingly, a recent study in Australia estimates that in a single year 728 deaths were attributable to fine particulate matter from wood-fire heaters. It is also the largest source of pollution in Australia in many areas. This post examines whether Australia is fulfilling its obligations under Article 12 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights (ICESCR), as well as additional agreements that underscore the necessity to mitigate air pollution to safeguard health. Breathing in danger. Wood-fire heaters contain a cocktail of carcinogenic chemicals including particulate matter PM 2.5, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen oxides. Not only does wood-fire usage contribute to 60% of fine particle pollution, there is correlation between ingestion of said substances and decreased lung capacity, increased risks of heart attacks, and esophageal cancer. Simultaneously, the combustion of wood releases black carbon, a potent climate pollutant fueling climate change. It is evident that pollutant smoke is incongruous to health from both a biological and environmental perspective. The right to life and right to health are also interconnected with environmental international frameworks such as the United Nations Human Rights Council resolutions and the Paris Agreement requiring Australia to address pollution and climate change to protect human life and well-being. Against this backdrop, Australian domestic air quality standards are more lenient than the World Health Organization (WHO) guidelines. The Australian National Environment Protection Measure mandates maximum annual PM 2.5 particulate levels of 8 micrograms per cubic meter, in contrast to the WHO, which recommends a maximum of 5 micrograms per cubic meter. The misalignment also arguably constitutes a breach of Article 12 obligation to ensure healthy environmental conditions moving forward. Promisingly, the Australian Capital Territory recently announced it would phase out wood-fire heaters by 2045 in recognition of the harmful health and environmental impacts of wood-fire emissions. While a step in the right direction and a precedent for other Australian jurisdictions to follow, the 21-year window enables the inevitability of continued fatalities and illness to fester to recognized that it must proactively take steps within available resources to realize the right to health. Australia must immediately adopt a unified and proactive regulatory framework that prioritizes health and human rights with respect to air quality. This should begin with air quality standards in line with WHO recommendations, creating a consistent national baseline. Additionally, the federal government should earmark subsidies or similar fiscal incentives to citizens, so to encourage the transition from wood-fire heaters to green heating technologies. This measure should prioritize the vulnerable populations in rural and low-income areas and therefore mitigate the inequalities they currently are subjected to. By adopting these proposals, Australia can better fulfill its international obligations under the ICESCR and ICCPR and demonstrate global leadership in addressing health, human rights, and environmental sustainability with respect to the dangers of wood-fire heaters. For Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany on Saturday accused Vice President JD Vance of unacceptably interfering in the German imminent elections on behalf of a party that has played down the atrocities committed by the Nazis 80 years ago. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, February 15, 2025, a day after Vance stunned the Munich Security Conference by telling German leaders to drop their so-called firewall and allow the hard right alternative for Germany, or AfD, to enter their federal government. Olaf Scholz accused Vance of effectively violating a commitment to never again allow Germany to be led by fascists who could repeat the horrors of the Holocaust. A commitment to never again is not reconcilable with support for the AfD, Scholz said at the conference on Saturday morning in an address opening the second day of the gathering. Scholz said the AfD had trivialized Nazi atrocities like the concentration camp at Dachau, which Vance visited on Friday. The Chancellor said Germany would not accept suggestions from outsiders about how to run its democracy or directives to work with such a party as AfD. That is not done, certainly not among friends and allies. Scholz said where our democracy goes from here is for us to decide. Attendees at the speech Vance made had been expecting to hear details of the Trump plans for Ukraine peace talks and NATO defense policies. On Saturday, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine himself put the focus on the Ukraine war in his remarks, starkly laying out the threat from Russian battle-hardened military and making an impassioned appeal for Europeans to take their security into their own hands, including by forming an army of Europe that would supplement U.S. power on the continent. His speech drew standing ovations. In contrast to the Vance speech the day before, the Scholz comments underscored a growing unease among European leaders about their relationship with the United States and their own domestic politics. They came as leaders scrambled at the summit to formulate a response to the Trump sudden shift in Ukraine policy and the possibility that he could cut the continent out of negotiations. Just a few days before the Vance remarks, Trump threatened to impose new tariffs on virtually every country the United States trades with. Then he spoke of negotiating an end to Russian war in Ukraine directly with Putin of Russia, leaving Europeans, including Ukraine, wondering if they would be included. The foreign minister of Poland said at the summit that President Emmanuel Macron of France had called an emergency meeting of European leaders to discuss Ukraine on Sunday. At the same time, far-right parties across Europe have gained ground by tapping into unease, which also helped propel Trump back to power in the United States. The Vance comments suggested that a new kind of American alliance with Europe was forming that bypasses the official leadership in favor of movements like the German AfD and the National Rally in France. At the Saturday sessions of the Security Conference, reactions were predominantly negative to the Vance speech and the Trump agenda. Scholz was joined in his criticism by Friedrich Merz, his rival, as the Chancellor, who the conservative Christian Democrats candidate who polls suggest is the favorite to be the next leader of Germany. Vance spent much of his speech on Friday scolding Europeans for what he suggested were Soviet-style restrictions on free speech across the continent. On Saturday, Friedrich Merz defended the German laws that prohibit particular forms of speech, including hate speech, and banned Nazi slogans, including on social media. Merz also criticized the Trump tariff policy, saying that Germany wanted to reduce tariffs, not increase them, and that we do not believe in trade conflicts. The comments were the latest in a series of critiques of the Vance speech from German politicians before the snap election next Sunday. The Scholz Social Democrats are running third or fourth in most polls. The AfD is running second, and its Chancellor candidate Alice Weidel met Vance on Friday in Munich. Alternative for Germany AfD candidates have been able to win parliamentary seats, but no other party has been willing to form a coalition with them to take control of the government. Parts of the AfD have been classified as extremist by German intelligence. Some of its members have been convicted of violating German law against the use of Nazi slogans. Others have been arrested for trying to overthrow the federal government. That collective shunning of the AfD and other extremist parties is known as the firewall. Vance said the AfD and other hard-right parties across Europe represented legitimate voter concerns. There is no room for firewalls, Vance said. Scholz chided Vance for that focus in a question and answer session after his speech. He was asked by the editor-in-chief of The Economist if Vance had made any points in his speech worth reflecting on. You mean all these very relevant discussions about Ukraine and security in Europe? Scholz said, drawing laughter from the audience. Then Scholz said, we should be very clear that free speech in Europe means that you are not attacking others in ways that are against legislation and laws we have in our country, and that is the case. There is no difference between the digital world and the analog world. To say it like this, Zelensky in his remarks focused on the question of European defense. The United States would be pivotal in securing any ceasefire in Ukraine. Europe also has to step up. There were intelligence warnings of Russian plans to conduct military exercises in Belarus next summer. Russia invaded Ukraine after deploying troops to Belarus under the guise of exercises. Europe just needs to start acting in a way that no one can say no to. Europe boss it around or treat it like a pushover, Zelensky said in a conversation after his speech. Zelensky also said that Ukraine needed to be at the table at any ceasefire talks, and he asked to meet with Trump before any meeting that Trump has with Putin of Russia. It is up to them. They can discuss anything they want, but not Ukraine without Ukraine, Zelensky said.
One introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM2.5, and PM2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove. International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View purple air PM2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.